Hello loves, and welcome back to another video. It's Raven Sierra, and in today's video we are talking about under processed hair. I'm going to share some tips with you ladies about how to avoid under processing your hair when you do your relaxers, and I'm also going to share a few tips to help you if you currently have some under processed sections in your hair or you're currently dealing with under processed issues. So all under processing is basically when you have a section of your hair, or it might be your entire head, that your natural texture is still prominent and your hair did not get fully relaxed in those sections. This could happen for a variety of reasons. Maybe you did not leave the relaxer on long enough. Maybe you did not comb or smooth that section. And because of that, the relaxer did not fully straighten your hair and you're still able to see your natural texture. Let's talk about some ways to avoid under processing. The number one way that I find that I am able to avoid under processing is to have a method with your relaxer application. I would say a method and a plan. So if you know that you have certain areas of your hair that your hair is thicker or coarser, or just that part of your hair takes longer to process, go ahead and apply the relaxer to that section first, just to make sure that the relaxer is applied and is able to process in that section longer. That's going to limit the likelihood of that section being under processed. And with having a method to your relaxer application, make sure you comb and smooth the relaxer through your new growth. Now, you don't want to comb and smooth the relaxer onto your hair that is already processed, because then you will over process your hair. But if you don't comb and smooth your hair is still going to be relaxed, but it's not going to fully process, and you still might have some texture left behind or still some thickness because you did not fully work the relaxer into those strands. The second thing that you can do to avoid your hair being under processed when you relax it is to avoid using too much hair base. What base is, which I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, base is what you use to actually like coat your scalp or coat your hair strands, that serves as a base or a barrier between your hair or your scalp and the relaxer. Now, a lot of people base their scalp with like a petroleum based product like hair grease or Vaseline or something like that. And while I think that is great to do, I think you have to be careful with that, because a lot of people just apply the Vaseline or grease sloppily onto their, I don't know if that's the word or not, but they apply it really, and I'm guilty of this as well, but they apply it really like sloppy, and the Vaseline or the grease gets onto your hair, onto your new growth, where the relaxer is supposed to be processing. And because that Vaseline is there, it's a barrier between your hair and the relaxer. So you might have some under processing in those areas where you have put too much base. And like I said, using base or some type of barrier on your hair is a good idea, but I think you should limit this strictly to your scalp and to those areas of your hair that have already been processed, and do it neatly. Don't do it messy so that it's all over the sections of your hair that need to be processed, because that is the part of your hair that needs to be processed. And if you accidentally put grease or some type of protective solution on that area, it's going to be under processed or take a longer time to process, and you're not going to get the desired results that you want from your relaxer. Another thing that you should not do if you do not want to experience under processing with your hair is to dilute your relaxer or use a relaxer that is not the appropriate strength for your hair. So a lot of people I have seen in the past dilute their relaxer with like conditioner or whatever. I don't know. Well, I'm not gonna say I don't know why you would do that, because, you know, I know some people are not really going for a relaxed look. They might be going for like a Tex-Lex look, whatever. But I have seen this go wrong. Like, I have seen people do this and it's like they didn't even relax their hair, and their hair is under process because obviously you have altered the relaxer. You've changed the chemical because you've added extra chemicals to it. So don't do that. If you are scared of applying the relaxer to the point where you feel like you have to dilute it because you're just scared to apply it, or you're scared that it's just too strong or whatever, I would advise you to seek the assistance of a professional hairstylist to do your relaxer. Because if you're not comfortable, the last thing I want you to do is to mess up your hair, and then your hair is, you know, you have to cut it or worse. So please, if you're not sure about how to apply the relaxer, you're scared, you don't know the proper strength to use, don't dilute it. And don't use a weak relaxer. Just go to a professional. I would rather you just go to a professional than, you know, you dilute the relaxer or use the improper strength and your hair is under process and it ends up breaking off and you have to cut it, or just worse. So yeah, don't do that. The fourth thing that you can do to make sure that you do not experience any issues with under processing in your relaxer is to make sure you take care of your scalp. Now, this is very important. And I know, like, when I was little, before my mom used to relax my hair, or before I would go to the hair salon, my mom or my stylist would be like, you ain't scratch your hair? Don't scratch your hair? Because you know you're gonna get a relaxer. And that's true. Like, if your scalp is inflamed, if your scalp is irritated, you are not going to be able to keep that relaxer on your head. You're not going to be able to. I've been there, and I have done a relaxer, not smart, but I've done a relaxer when my scalp was irritated and itchy, and I could not leave it on, and I had to rinse it almost immediately off. I had to wash it off because I just couldn't take it. And because of that, my hair was left under process and I did not get the results that I wanted. And so just make sure you take care of your scalp. Make sure you're taking care of your scalp, not just the week prior to your relaxer, but the weeks leading up to your relaxer. Make sure you're taking care of your scalp. Make sure your scalp is fully healed. Make sure that if you are experiencing any issues with your scalp, any irritation, any itchiness, anything, just wait. Don't do the relaxer because it's not going to take and you're going to be mad anyway. So just make sure your scalp is together, and you can do various things to take care of your scalp. You can make sure your scalp is conditioned. So for you, if this means, you know, using a light oil on your scalp to make sure your scalp is not dry, you can just make sure your scalp is free of debris. You can do this by using a good clarifying shampoo and really getting in there, getting on your scalp and getting all that gunk and stuff off of your scalp so that your scalp has time to breathe and it's not itchy. There are so many ways that you can take care of your scalp and make sure that it's safe when you do your relaxer so that you do not experience any burning and you're able to keep the relaxer on in enough time for it to fully process. The fifth thing that you can do to avoid under processing with your relaxer, and I know some of y'all not gonna like this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway because this is something that I have done and I experienced an issue when I did this. So this tip would be to not stretch your relaxer for too long. And the reason why I think this may cause an issue and may cause issue for under processing, especially if you're doing your relaxer at home, is because There's good and bad to stretching your relaxer. The good thing is when you stretch your relaxer, you have a lot of new growth to work with, so you're less likely to overlap your hair and you're less likely to experience under processing. However, I feel like this can be a double-edged sword, because when you have so much new growth to work with, like for example, if you're one of those people that only gets relaxers twice a year or once a year, and your hair is really thick and your new growth is really thick, you might have a hard time putting that relaxer on your hair. You might have a hard time. I know I did when I tried to do it. I know it didn't work for me. It might work for you, but it didn't work for me. And I experienced under processing when I tried to do this. And the reason why I think I experienced under processing with this is because my hair was very thick. I had to really work through the sections. I had to make sure that I put relaxer all the way on all of the under processed hair. And because I had went so long without relaxing my hair, I kind of just really didn't know where to start, because I had so much hair, I had so much virgin hair to work with, that it was easy for me to under process certain sections because I didn't realize how much new growth I had in certain sections. So while this can be a good thing to avoid over processing, I feel that this can still lead to under processing your hair, because you may not realize how much new growth you might have in a certain section. Your hair is going to be really thick and it might be really hard to work with because you have so much new growth. And this could lead to under processing because it could take longer, you could run out of time, all sorts of things could happen. So I would just say, just get your relaxer in the recommended time frame, anywhere of 8 to 12 weeks, to avoid this issue. Let's talk about how you can actually deal with your under processed hair. If you currently have sections of your hair that's under processed, maybe your whole head is under processed, or you just want to know some additional tips, I got you. The first thing that I believe you can do is just to take your time with your hair. When you're working with two different textures, your hair might tend to get tangled. Your hair strands might tend to wrap around each other, and you're just going to have to take your time, because it is going to take a little bit more time for you to detangle your hair and for you to properly style your hair. And if you're rushing, you might experience some breakage. You might pull your hair out because you're combing it too fast. A whole host of issues could happen if you do not take your time. So please just take your time, work in sections, small sections, and if you can, and definitely use a wide tooth comb when you're working with areas of your hair that's under processed. The second thing that you can do when you're working with under processed hair is to use moisturizing products that soften your virgin hair or your under processed hair. Now, this is very important because sometimes when our virgin hair texture comes in, it can feel a little bit drier than our relaxed straightened hair. And because it can feel a little bit drier, it can cause your hair to break off at that point where the new growth or your virgin hair meets your relaxed hair. So if you use moisturizing products, it's going to help soften that area and lessen the chance of breakage. And I also feel it's important to use products that have a lot of slip. So when you're using your moisturizing deep conditioners, your moisturizing leave-ins, your shampoos, make sure it's a product with slip that's going to be able to guide through your hair, that's going to be able to work those tangles out, so that you're not having a hard time when you're trying to comb through your hair and your hair is just softer and easier to manage. The third thing that you can do when you're dealing with under processed hair is to wear styles that work best with the two textures. So for me, these are roller sets. This could be braid outs. And I really like to do roller sets when it's time for me to get relaxers, just because it kind of blends the two textures together. It puts your hair in a style so that you don't have to touch your hair for a few days. Not necessarily a protective style, but just more so of a low manipulation style where your hair is in a roller set or in a braid out or some type of style where you're not having to constantly manipulate your hair and work with those two textures. And I feel that that's very important, because not only are you camouflaging the two different textures, so your new growth doesn't look as bad, or the under process area doesn't look as bad, because you have a roller set in and all your hair is the same texture, as well as you're not manipulating your hair and having to comb through or mess with those two textures too much to avoid breakage. The fourth tip that I'm gonna share is two different things, but I'm gonna share them in one tip because they are both styling techniques that just kind of go into smoothing your under processed or virgin hair and making it easier to work with, making it more visually aesthetic to look at with your hair. And the first thing is to wet set your hair. So wet set can be a roller set like I just talked about, or you can wet set your hair by applying mousse to the under processed area and kind of just like tying it down, or using a scarf to mold this area down and let it dry. And this is a really good thing to do because it's gonna flatten out and smooth out that under processed area, and you're not even gonna be able to tell that it's under processed. And you can do this by just using a little bit of foaming mousse or wrapping foam, applying it to your edges or wherever the under processed hair is, and using like wrap strips or using a scarf and sitting under the dryer for a few minutes. This is gonna smooth this area out and lay it down, and you're not even gonna be able to tell that your hair is under processed by doing this. So definitely give this a try if you have some new growth coming in, or you have some sections in the middle that's under process that you need kind of camouflage and you need those areas to lay down. And the second part of this tip is to blow dry your hair. And I really like to blow dry my hair once a week just because it blends in the two textures. All my hair is uniform and one texture when I blow dry it. It's much easier for my hair to manage, and I experience less breakage and less tangles when I'm working with my hair in a blowed out state. So ladies, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these tips. I hope these tips can help you either prevent you from under processing your hair when you do your next relaxer, or if you're currently struggling with some under processed issues in your hair right now. I hope these are some things that you can try to make your hairstyling routine and wash day a little bit easier. Let me know what you think about these tips. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you aren't, and I will see you ladies in the next video. Bye bye.